Welcome back to another episode of Lost Codex Legends. My name is Jesse, and today we're talking about one particular lady on the Horde side who's been rather important, not only in terms of the female representation on the Horde side, but also for her people and the direction that her people have gone in. I'm of course talking about the Lady of Light, the Matron of the Blood Knights, Lady Liadrin. Now without further ado, let's talk Liadrin. Like most fictional characters, Lady Liadrin was orphaned at a young age. Her parents were killed by Amani trolls, giving her this deep-seating hatred for their kind. Not that Blood Elves really needed a reason to hate them, but, she had another reason, because her parents were killed by them. So, she grew up hating trolls. She was raised by a man named Vandalor, a high priest of Silvermoon, whose tutelage led to her passion and interest in the light, and eventually led to her becoming a priestess. Many years later, after Liadrin had become a priestess, she accompanied Magister Darkon Drathyr and her apprentice Galel into the forests of Eversong to investigate a malfunctioning runestone which was meant to keep her and her people and their land safe. It was during this expedition that her party was ambushed and captured by Amani trolls, where she came face to face with Zul'jin herself. Prior to this ambush, in a totally separate attack, Lor'themar Theron had also been ambushed, and funny enough, this is where she meets him for the first time as a prisoner of the Amani trolls. Now Zul'jin, of course, interrogates the elves as he's fascinated and interested in how these runestones work for the defenses of Silvermoon. During this time, Galel, her apprentice, breaks free and distracts Zul'jin, and in order to save him, Liadrin channels the light so that her pain that she's feeling is mirrored back onto Zul'jin. This enables them being the four elves, the opportunity to escape, and Darkon Drathyr teleports them all to safety. There was a point in time when the elves were kidnapped by the trolls where they were put under some sort of mojo spell pacifying potion of some kind, and Liadrin receives several visions of her three companions. The first vision she receives is of Darkon, and she sees him as this reanimated corpse, something disgusting, something she'd never seen before. When she gets a vision of her apprentice Galel, he is in this twisted, deformed state, and when she sees the vision of Lor'themar, she sees him writhing in a cloud of flames. Of course, because they all escaped and survived this ordeal, they all become good friends, Lor'themar Theron, Galel, Liadrin, and Darkon Drathyr. Liadrin goes on to witness and attend many high-ranking ceremonies for the High Elves of Silvermoon, including Lor'themar's promotion, two of his promotions, to Ranger Captain and later Ranger Lord. Darkon and Galel were also present at these ceremonies. It's later during the Second War that Liadrin gets to have some revenge on Zul'jin after he's kidnapped by Haldoran Brightwing. This is when Zul'jin's eye is taken, and of course, during this time, Liadrin actually notes that the amount that they're torturing them, they should just put him out of his misery, because the elves are being quite vicious to him, as the Amani trolls are quite vicious to them. And Liadrin advocates for ending Zul'jin's life, but of course that doesn't happen as a bunch of Amani trolls attack, thus allowing Zul'jin to cut off his own arm and escape into the woods with his fellow trolls. Years later, things are going great for Liadrin during the Third War. She is now High Priestess of Silvermoon, she's happy, she's looking back on the past, and everything's going well. She notes that, there's some troubling reports coming from the human kingdoms and all that, and she notes that in hindsight, it's probably a good thing that the elves distance themselves from the humans, and of course, all good things come to a crashing halt during this time. Things start to go wrong when the King of Silvermoon's health begins to fade. The guy is old. The guy's, quite an old king. And he's receiving reports from the south and is troubled about something, but Liadrin's not within his inner court, so of course she doesn't know specifically what, but reports are coming in from the southern human kingdoms. That troubling reports comes in the form of Arthas Menethil knocking at the door with a whole undead army, saying, "Hey, I need that Sunwell, but in exchange, I'll give you guys, eternal life in the form of undeath." Naturally, the elves refuse, and so begins the siege of Quel'Thalas, and the scourge begins to run rampant through the lands of the elves. Of course, as Arthas attacks the elven lands, the shield that protects Silvermoon is brought down by Darkon Drathyr's betrayal, a close personal friend of Liadrin, As Arthas Menethil marches on Silvermoon directly, Liadrin witnesses the fate of Sylvanas Windrunner, the former Ranger General of Silvermoon. She sees her undead ghostly visage being paraded before the walls of Silvermoon, just as Arthas and his Scourge forces attack. Although she is disturbed and horrified, Liadrin holds her resolve and continues to heal the wounded and aid those defenders against the Scourge. As the defense of Silvermoon is crumbling, Arthas Menethil engages with Grand Magister Bellovere directly and actually doesn't kill him, but mortally wounds him, totally mauls him with Frostmourne and just casts him aside. During this time, Liadrin's foster father, the man who taught her all about the light and raised her as a priest, rushes forward to help Bellovere as Liadrin watches Arthas fight King Anastarion, this legendary battle between Frostmourne and Philomolorn, and as she's watching, her foster father, Vendalor, is ripped apart by an abomination and is unable to get to Bellovere in time. Bellovere, who is grievously wounded by Frostmourne, having just watched his friend, the High Priest of Silvermoon, now die, promised Vendalor that he would protect Liadrin, and his final act is teleporting Liadrin to safety moments before he's ripped apart by Scourge as well. Liadrin is far away when the Sunwell is completely tainted by Arthas and the resurrection of Kel'Thuzad, and it's during this time that Liadrin begins to break down. She is unable to call upon the light. Panic and grief are ripping at her. Survivor's guilt is now there. Everyone she knew, from the man who raised her to the Grand Magister, High King, Sunstrider himself, Sylvanas Windrunner, all these legendary characters have fallen all around her. Thousands of elves are dead, and she is unable to call upon the light. Not because of the Sunwell. She knows that she can still call upon the light without the Sunwell, but she's unable to do it. She's unable to call upon any sort of powers of healing, anything that she had been taught, and this scares the absolute hell out of Liadrin. Now later on, as Kael'thas is preparing to strike out at the corrupted, tainted Sunwell, Liadrin has now refused to call upon the light. She knows that she can't call upon it, and the light, she's having trouble connecting to it. But now she feels she doesn't deserve that connection. Now she is so racked with guilt and pain that she has completely abandoned the light. She refuses to call on it. She's not worthy in her mind. She is not able or worthy enough to call upon this power. Instead of picking up a staff as a high priestess, instead she picks up a weapon, a truncheon instead. And although she doesn't really know how to use it, she asks Lor'themar's men to teach her how to use this. She wants to volunteer for this attack to help Kael'thas against the Scourge at the Sunwell, and also against Amani Trolls, because apparently Amani Trolls are just being a bunch of dicks and also attacking the Sunwell at the same time. And so she gets taught how to use this weapon. She's no longer a priest. Liadrin is now a warrior, and she's felt that the light has abandoned her, so she's abandoned the light. She is not worthy of calling upon it, and she goes in hand with a melee weapon in hand instead of holy magic. During the strike force on Quel'Danas, Liadrin comes face to face with an undead version of her foster father, Vendalar, and of course is forced to put him down. After the battle, after the tainted Sunwell has been destroyed, Kael'thas proclaims that they are no longer High Elves, but they are now Blood Elves. And at this point, Liadrin's story continues, unfortunately, to go downhill. And for the next 5 years, Liadrin struggles. Liadrin wanders her lands, helping rebuild and helping her people get back on their feet, but she is feeling guilt, and she cannot connect to the light, and she's feeling vengeful and angry. And without the light, her struggles with arcane addiction is hitting hard. Liadrin spends much of her time south of the Eversong border, hunting Scourge, and specifically hunting Darkon Drathir, her former friend with his stupid hat, because it's because of him and his betrayal that Arthas was able to do so much damage in Silvermoon. Liadrin is angry, Liadrin is without the light, and Liadrin is vengeful. During this time, as she roams the land as a warrior, crushing the skulls of all these Scourge minions and undead monstrosities, she receives small little arcane gifts and arcane objects to still her addiction by an anonymous source, and she has a feeling she knows who it is. She thinks it's her former apprentice Galel, who's in hiding. He's hiding his identity. But in truth, it's actually Lor'themar giving her these gifts, who Lor'themar over the years, has some affection for Liadrin. After some time, Liadrin was summoned to Silvermoon, and she's completely astonished to find it's been entirely reclaimed. She has been so focused on rebuilding the outer parts of Eversong rather, and being south of the border, that I guess she had no idea what was going on in the capital city itself, and she returns to find it almost back to normal. Aside from the giant scar that's right through the middle, the other part, the eastern part of the city, is definitely more intact than she anticipated. As Liadrin's taken to the royal palace, she meets the newly promoted Grand Magister Romath, who gives her an interesting proposition. Prince Kael'thas and his new alliance of Naga and allying with Illidan Stormrage. By the way, Liadrin is one of the few who really know about that. Not many do, but she is one of the few. Kael'thas has sent back a present, a postcard from Outland, says, "Wish you were here, here's a Naru," and sends Muru, I guess in a box, back to Silvermoon to help the elves with their magical addictions. Says, "Here, drain the life force out of this. Eat this. This'll help." Thanks, Kael'thas. But Romath has a better idea. Romath and several other magisters have the idea, instead of using it as a magical source of energy for their people to just have a total chow-down feast on, they want to use it as a conductor for the light, because they are aware it is a holy creature, and Romath has an idea. Romath tells Liadrin that her life has been led by extremities. On one side, she was a devout priestess of the light, wielding a staff and healing the sick and healing the wounded. But since then, she has picked up a massive war maul, a truncheon, and she's just roaming the land, stomping around in plate armor and just crushing the skulls of the Scourge. There's been two total polar opposites here, and Romath says, "What if you can be both?" Romath hands her the blood-tempered Ransur, the iconic Blood Elf Paladin Spear that Blood Elf players get in-game at level 20, and tells her that this is the balance between both paths. It's both the familiarity of a staff that she once wielded, but far more elegant than the traditional war maul that she's been wielding and running around and killing Scourge with. He introduces Liadrin to the captured Muru, and Liadrin forges the link with the being. When Liadrin channels the light out of Muru, there's no warmth and there's no love, but there is power, and she feels that power. And now Liadrin feels different. There's something coming from this creature that she feels, why be a slave to something when you can be the master of it, right? And Liadrin, that's exactly what Liadrin's feeling. From Muru, there is power, but this power comes at a price. If not at a moral cost, because, of course, this is a divine, holy creature. They're well aware that it's holy, and there's definitely some morality issue in terms of draining the life essence of this seemingly pure, calm. Now, before anyone here watches this and rolls their eyes and goes, "But the light is evil," and all this stuff, remember, when you're near a Naru, the Naru presence is calming. The Naru presence, it sings a symphony of hope. As Chronicle says, it sings this song of warmth and hopefulness. Naru, there is a side to the Naru, and I'm not going to dispute that, but the pure elegance of their song, that sort of wind-chimey sound we hear in-game, is meant to invoke this radiation of purity and hopefulness and calmness. And they know that this is a holy creature, and yet they're still siphoning their power from it. So there is a morality issue there. We're not going to talk about the morality of the Naru. We're just going to be talking about using this living creature as a conduit for power. But if the cost of this power isn't a moral cost, then it's definitely a physical one, as there is a physical, almost mental aspect going on here. There's a battle. It is physically draining on you. It is physically inflicting on you. And there's definitely mental attributes going on between the Blood Knight in particular and Muru himself, themself. It's a Naru. There's a lot going on there when you're draining that, and there's definitely a toll to be taken. Whatever the cost she is paying, physical, mental, moral, Liadrin forges a link with Muru. Liadrin reconnects with the light via forceful means and infuses her power with Muru's power. And in doing so, Liadrin becomes the first of the Blood Knights of the Blood Elves. Liadrin becomes the Blood Elf Matriarch and forges this new order with a new vision. instead of serving the light, they're going to master it. Why be a servant when you can control it? And a little bit of dark shamanism style thinking going on there. This results in a rather cold relationship with the light, and it actually gets a lot of dirty looks from the some of the population of Silvermoon. Remember, these elves, you know, some of them, not all of them, many of them, may have had a connection with the light in some way. And now, despite everything that's happened, and now these Blood Knights are physically draining this holy, divine, pure creature of its essence, of its power, to gain access to the light again. But it's not a warm, loving connection. It's a forced upon. And the elves of Silvermoon, some of the elves definitely look at the Blood Knights with scorn and shake their head. They're not angry. They're just disappointed. Liadrin's old friend and apprentice Galel joins the Blood Knights, and Liadrin lets him, but says, you know, you gotta obey every command I give you. This isn't gonna be easy. Just so you know. After this, several things happen all at once. Lor'themar starts negotiating with the Horde, and Liadrin tries to keep an open mind. She goes, yeah, you know what? They did burn down our forests in the Second War and kill a lot of people. And they have trolls in them. That's horrifying. And they've got undead, and that's even more scary. But, you know, we need allies, and the Alliance are a bunch of dicks right now. And she's a little bit cautious about Sylvanas, because she wonders if the Sylvanas Windrunner of the Forsaken... is that the same Sylvanas Windrunner that died protecting Silvermoon? Is it? Liadrin wonders. Liadrin's been asking the right questions from the very beginning. During this time, as Lor'themar is negotiating with the Horde, there are rumors going around at Darkon Drathir's old residence. There's scourge activity going around. There's movement there. No one really knows what's going on. In addition to this, there's also news of someone looking for 3 stones of power that were formed and created by Grand Magister Bellavir a million years ago, and Liadrin assumes whoever's looking for these stones clearly believes that they can contest the Scourge, and thus they set off to look for these stones and to see what's going on. All while this is happening, Liadrin's friend Galel is having a bad time. The mana addiction is hitting him hard. Muru's connection, mental connection, that's not going around. You've got addiction, you've got withdrawal, you've got this mental battle going on. Galel is not having a good time, and things are going wrong. He actually ends up murdering the dealer, the one who gives him his magical substance to sate his addiction. He ends up killing his dealer in this fit of paranoid rage insanity, despite being a Blood Knight in Liadrin's group. All these things come together as the Blood Knights start to lay a trap for Darkon Drathir in his residence, but turns out it's a trap set for them. The Lich King wants the Blood Knights to serve him, and Lor'themar and Hal'Daran help the Blood Knights fight off Darkon and his scourge ambushers. Liadrin is not present at this event because Romath forces her to go off and find Galel. Galel is found in the old troll chambers where they had once been held prisoner a long time ago by Zul'jin, and he admits to having murdered the man who sold him his mana crystal as his dealer. In this fit of rage and this fit of paranoia, he needs to silence Muru's voice. It's important to note that he's not exactly wretched here, but he may as well be. He is withdrawing hard, and he hasn't fully turned into one of the wretched beings outside Silvermoon, but he's close. And in this desperation, he lunges out at Liadrin, and Liadrin is forced to kill her childhood best friend right then and there. As she's holding Galel's body, crying and feeling the warmth of his skin fade, she begins to question, is this the right path that she should be walking? Since the first time meeting Muru, she wonders, am I doing the right thing? As she holds in the body of someone else that she's lost. She's now lost everyone, pretty much. And now she's wondering, alright, is this the right thing? Despite her doubts, Liadrin continues to lead the Blood Knights and trains more of them, setting up campaigns against the Scourge in the Plaguelands. In an attempt to assert her authority over the Light and the other so-called paladins of the world, Liadrin tasks her new Blood Knight initiates to go to Stratholme and defile and burn the chapel of Alonzus Fowl. just to say screw you to the other paladins of the world. You know what? We also have our own cool paladin order. It's such a dick move when you think about it. They go into the chapel and there's this artifact that keeps the flames of Stratholme and the scourge of Stratholme at bay. And her students extinguish the flame for the sole purpose of letting it burn and be defiled. So, good job, Liadrin, you petty dick. It's important to remember, though, that her pettiness towards the light and towards the other paladins is not entirely unjustified. She watched thousands of people get ripped apart. Her own foster father, the Grand Magister, the King of Silvermoon, so many people ripped apart and mauled, and the light wouldn't answer. The light was unable to be called upon her. She fumbled, she was flustered, she was panicked, she was frenzied. And she felt that she wasn't worthy of it, but she was angry at it as well. And so I laugh at how petty this quest is. Just also because of the fact we know who Alonzo's Fowl is now, but it's not entirely unjustified. And now, with Galel now dead, she's having a bad time. Things are not going well for Liadrin here. But don't worry, things start to look up eventually. Because the Blood Knights are taught a massive lesson in humility when Kael'thas betrays his people. There's a shocker. And steals Muru, so they no longer have a light bulb. Now they're in the dark and they're wondering, oh god, what do we do? This is bad news. Desperate for a new source of power, desperate for anything, Liadrin visits Shatrath to speak to a free Naru, Adal. She learns that Muru was completely and well aware of what was being done to him, how he was being used, how he was being treated, and allowed it to happen. He's a Naru. And he probably could have broken out on his own accord. When he was full power, he probably easily could have broken out. But he allowed it to happen because he knows it would lead to the elves being redeemed. This is a massive punch in the gut to Liadrin's faith and to everything, knowing Muru was well aware of what was being done to him and just let it happen because it would help them, her people. She completely renounces her loyalty to House Sunstrider and agrees to fight alongside the newly formed Shattered Sun Offensive to end Kael'thas' dark ambitions on the Isle of Quel'Danas. After the death of Kael'thas and Muru's dark form has been put down and Kil'jaeden has been flushed down the toilet, she is present at the site of the defiled Sunwell along with Velen. Velen puts the darkened heart of Muru into the Sunwell and she witnesses as the Sunwell is reborn in its full glory. This is likely the moment when her eyes go from a fell green to the golden color that they are now. This is the moment where she rekindles a positive connection with the light, standing next to Prophet Velen, and she acknowledges that the road ahead is going to be a hard one, but because of their new positive connection with the light, she's going to do everything she can to free her people from the magical addiction and to return her people to their proper and true glory. During Cataclysm in Mists of Pandaria, Liadrin is noticeably absent, but, she's probably working on herself before she can save the world. She's got to make sure her Blood Knights are well trained, doing some political things, whatever she got to do. But she returns in Warlords of Draenor, and she accompanies Thrall and Khadgar on the front lines in the vanguard that goes through the portal to stop the Iron Horde. She is there. And she's actually sickened by the Iron Horde savagery. Remember, she saw the original Horde, what they did back in the Second War, and she's having none of this. This is throwback to Warcraft 2. She's like, no, I don't like this. She settles with the Horde in Frostfire Ridge with the players as we set up our garrison. Liadrin leads a group of Blood Elves and Blood Knights on Draenor called the Sunsworn, and she aids Maladar in defending Auchindoun and ultimately keeping it out of Gul'dan and the Shadow Council's hands. Liadrin assists in the heightened protection of Auchindoun as they locate the different Atamal crystals, and actually travels to the ruined planet of Xandros with the player and High Exarch Maladar, where they defeat the massive pit lord named Mongrathod. She participates in the defense of Shatrath City after the Iron Horde's already taken it, but before the Sargerai has fully taken it, and she joins the player alongside Maladar and provokes Sokrathar into coming out of hiding, to which she then helps take him down and kills the traitorous Exarch right then and there. At the end of the Garrison campaign, she's seen alongside other Horde and Alliance characters confronting Grommash Hellscream, and later on she's trying to find a cure for the Fel Orcs in Gul'dan's new Fel Horde, and she enlists the Shadow Hunter and the player to help. This is of course during the Fury of Hellfire patch. When news of the Shadow Council returning to Auchindoun reaches everyone's ears, both her and High Exarch Yrel actually return to Auchindoun to root everyone out and to, kick all the cultists out. Apparently they didn't learn the first time. And this is where it's learned that the assumed dead Terran Gorfin has actually been having a total chowdown on the souls of the dead, into which he is now called Gorfiend. She doesn't really play much of a role from here on out, so it's assumed she was involved in the siege of Hellfire Citadel, and then returns to Azeroth with us. In Legion, Liadrin is surprisingly not present at the Broken Shore attack, nor is Lor'themar. Presumably Silvermoon or Eversong is under attack by something going on, or maybe they're en route and they got lost or something. Blizzard likely just didn't have enough room for all of the NPCs, or didn't want to show every single one of them, as Lor'themar is one of the only Horde leaders not present. So you can't assume that they didn't do anything. There's got to be a reason, we just don't know what it is. But she was present during Vol'jin's funeral and Sylvanas' ascension to War Chief. After this, Liadrin meets with the other Paladin leaders from around the world in Dalaran. She then travels to the Sanctum of the Light, where she pledges her Blood Knights to the newly reformed Knights of the Silver Hand. Maxwell Tyrosus actually highly recommends her service to the player, to the High Lord character, where she then becomes the second chosen champion of the player character themselves. Liadrin, aside from being a follower in Legion, isn't super involved in the Class Hall campaign, but she does have a important role in the Death Knight quest campaign. When the Death Knights of the Ebon Blade storm the Sanctum of the Light to not only break in and steal Tyrion's body, but to resurrect him as the fourth horseman, Liadrin is the one solo defending his tomb. Maxwell Tyrosus is being strangled in the corner, other guards are being slaughtered by the Death Knights, but she is there, Quel'Dalar, or her version of Quel'Dalar in hand, ready to defend Tyrion's body with everything that she has. Although she is the last line of defense, she ultimately fails in defending Tyrion's body and is defeated in battle, not killed however. This is when the Death Knight's plans begin to crumble as the light begins to gather and fill the room, and she says out loud that even the Lich King had no power here on this holy ground, forcing them to flee. Darian Mograine, the Death Knight, is killed, and Tyrion is not claimed by the Ebon Blade. For Paladin players, she accompanies you and Maxwell to the Battle for the Exodar to defend it from the Legion. This is where she reunites with Velen, who is pleased with how much Liadrin has taken to the light after the Sunwell battle. Velen is, Velen likes Liadrin. He likes the connection. He likes her story arc that's happened, considering everything that she was prior to the Sunwell battle. Liadrin is present for the Suramar Rebellion and travels there alongside Ramath and his Magisters. She sympathizes with the Nightfallen and draws parallel between their addiction and deformative state and the Blood Elf's addiction to magic and how they became wretched. She also notes the mutual betrayals from their leader, both Prince Kael'thas and Elisand, and the connection and ties to the Legion that both of them have. She believes she understands their plight better than anyone, and has posters and bulletins put up all around the city to inform them of the Horde's arrival and to offer hope to the civilian population of Suramar. Liadrin is smart. While Liadrin is a person of faith, she is a priestess, she's also been in a position of power long enough. She's also played the Sindori politics game long enough, and she knows how this game works. And so she starts it nice and early. She starts putting up posters and propaganda and bulletins about the Horde's arrival. The Horde is here to save you, Suramar. We're the ones here to save you. And this is before anything has happened. Her forces, alongside Tyrande Whisperwind's forces, answer the call to war and scout the city. Liadrin rejects the plan to allow Varisa to defend the coalition of Horde and Alliance's flank, believing that Varisa is too heavily focused on vengeance against the Horde and doesn't trust her at all to do her job. She believes Tyranda's forces should step back from the frontal assault and shift their focus to scouting and let the Blood Knights handle the fighting. Liadrin believes that only her people are the ones prepared to carry the weight of this conflict. Anyone who's a Nightel fan will know that the Kaldorai's hit-and-run tactics and, guerrilla-style warfare is iconic to them, but no one can argue that the Kaldorai are ill-prepared for any sort of frontal assault of any kind. Liadrin's argument is that her people, the Blood Knights, the heavy artillery, they are the ones in the plate armor, they are the paladins on the charger. Leave them to do the heavy fighting. Let the Kaldorai handle the scouting. And it's definitely meant as a slight, but from Liadrin's point of view, let the forest elves stay, on top of the buildings with their archers, let us handle the street stuff. But, of course, Liadrin doesn't understand just how well prepared Tyrande and her forces are for any kind of battle. Liadrin meets with Thalyssra and Khadgar and relays the parallels between her people and the Sin'dorei, pledges to cleanse the Legion from Suramar altogether. During this time, Liadrin and Tyrande are both ashamed because their people have been insulting each other, flinging insults, sending threats, cruel objects, making messes of each other, all sorts of stuff. And she tasks the player to help clean up both camps before this insulting turns into full-on violence. Liadrin is present for the siege of Suramar as they breach the city and make it as far as the Nighthold before Elisande shows up and addresses the united elven army. Elisande has a comment for all the elves, or elven groups rather, but to Liadrin in particularly, she's actually offended. She's actually angry that the Sin'dorei would dare oppose her, saying that they of all people should know the kind of choice that Elisande was forced into. At this point, Elisande, who is one of the most powerful chronomancers in the world, completely freezes the army on the spot in a time stop spell before retreating back into the Nighthold. Liadrin, of course, is saved by Khadgar and the player, and she returns to the second siege of the Nighthold and is present when Gul'dan is killed by Illidan Stormrage. She's present after the siege when the Nightwell is unstable, and she's actually impressed when Thalyssra lets the Nightwell die, believing that in time the Nightborn will overcome the Nightwell's allure and the Nightborn as a people will prosper. She is present in Dalaran prior to the second attack on the Broken Shore, and later on answers the call of Velen to bring the fight to Argus, where she boards the Vindikar. On board the Vindikar, Liadrin converses with Silgrin, who, upon seeing what Argus has become, realizes the fate that would have befallen his people had they not been saved. Liadrin notes that her people needed allies to survive. Again, Liadrin's playing her cards here, and although it's been a harsh road, they found strength and unity within the Horde. She's really playing it up with Silgrin here. She's earned it well with Thalyssra. She said the right things to them. She's done the right things for the people. Now she's getting Silgrin's approval. Liadrin's playing a game here, and Liadrin's playing it well. She's also present where the Vindikar lands in Crokun. She's on the ground defending against demons. And later on, Liadrin helps bring the Nightborn directly into the Horde, suggesting him as an ally when Sylvana says, does anyone have any suggestions on who we can bring into the Horde? At the Orgrimmar embassy. Liadrin and Thalyssra discuss the rebellion and compassion Liadrin showed for her people, while also noting Tyrande's aggression and the grudging decision to support them and their cause against Elisande. Liadrin did it out of love and compassion, while Tyrande did it while being a grouchy bit of a snob, is essentially what the conversation's about. Thalyssra's a little bit annoyed with Tyrande and feels scorned by her. And this is when Liadrin takes full opportunity. And remember, Liadrin is a lady of faith. She is a paladin. But she's also a blood elf. She's also a Sin'dorei, alright? She isn't the kind, loving, lovey-dovey, motherly character of a group of paladins, of a group of light-wielding warriors. She is a hardened veteran of many battles. She has been the High Priestess of Silvermoon. She has seen and suffered terrible losses. She has lived through so much. And Liadrin, while Liadrin, like Lor'themar, aren't made for politics, they're good at it. And they understand the politics of their respective faction. They understand how the upper courts of Silvermoon work, and the lying and the right comments that you have to say to gain the higher ground, to gain the upper ground in Silvermoon society. And Liadrin does that here, and basically stomps all over the Night Elves in front of Thalyssra and says, "The Sindori have also been scorned by Tyrande and her prideful lot. Yet for many ages her people slept in dens or hid in trees, while my people fought to save the world." This has sparked some interesting dialogue. I have a massive paragraph of ranting here from those who helped write this script. And it's all valid, because Liadrin is blatantly lying here. But she's playing a game. This game ends with Thalyssra and the Nightborn of Suramar, arguably as powerful, if not more powerful, than the Magisters of Silvermoon, joining the Horde. This is a political win of unprecedented power. This is huge for her, and she understands how important this win is. So you know what? Bending the truth for this win might be worth it. Us from the outside, who know what she's saying, is sitting here going, "Are you kidding me? Are you actually kidding me right now?" But internally, Thalyssra doesn't know that, and Liadrin says, "You know what? It's a game of politics. It's a game of, war is coming, and this has to be decided now." Now, why is Liadrin lying, though? What exactly is a lie? Well, she says that the Tyrande and her lot are prideful. That's not a lie. That's fact. The Kaldori are they're pretty racist. They got some problems there. They're very untrusting of outsiders. But for many ages, while they hid in trees or slept in dens, all right, that was Malfurion. Let's be honest. Her people fought to save the world, and it's important to note that it was her people who blew up the world, started the Sundering, or rather her ancestors, and it was Tyrande's people who fought to save that world. There's also the whole battle for Mount Hyjal going on in the Third War, and maybe Liadrin didn't know about the battle for Mount Hyjal at the time, but it has been a long time. I have seen people say that she's unaware of the Night Elves' involvement in the battle for Mount Hyjal. We're now 10 years out of that, and there's a leader like Liadrin, a political leader like Liadrin, who was completely unaware of what happened during the Third War. Scouts, people are reporting what's going on. She's definitely read a book on what's happened since then, definitely is well aware. She is entirely playing a game of politics and a game of manipulation here. I can't honestly believe that someone as well-educated and well-practiced and high-ranking as Liadrin is just completely ignorant of the Night Elves' involvement in the Third War. You could argue that maybe they don't know everything about the War of the Ancients because it happened so long ago, but then again, she would have to know because of the whole Highborn being exiled and then sailing across the ocean and founding Silvermoon. There's nothing in terms of ignorance that she could possibly play here. And again, I'm not going to say Liadrin's stupid. In fact, it's the opposite. Liadrin is so smart because she is playing everything right. Tyrande has played the wrong cards by just being crabby. Liadrin is going in for the kill by basically saying, yeah, and she's kind of done nothing for a long time. Who's going to defend the Night Elves? We're there watching this event going on as Horde players. We don't care. It doesn't matter to us. There's no Night Elves around. They're going to go, actually, you're wrong. So again, the biased narrative of this is strictly from Liadrin's power game that she's playing, and she plays it well. Thalyssra and Liadrin go to Silvermoon City, where she's formally introduced to Lor'themar and also Illyria, who's, just casually visiting. Illyria is allowed to visit the Sunwell and make the pilgrimage, even though she is Alliance-aligned and a High Elf. She explains the Sunwell to Thalyssra and, gives her the full history, noting that its energies have changed since its destruction and rebirth, and now sustain the Blood Elves with the light. Liadrin is present for the Void attack on the Sunwell, which is accidentally caused by Illyria. And after that whole ordeal happens, the Lysra officially pledges herself to the Horde, and Liadrin takes her to Orgrimmar to meet the new War Chief. Liadrin is present at the draining of the energy from Sargeras' sword. If you are not a paladin, she is there representing the paladin class hall, and she's wielding the Ashbringer, just as every other class that isn't you is represented by someone in some form wielding a certain artifact of whatever random spec is given to them. And it's interesting because the Ashbringer that Liadrin wields here is actually the wrong color, so it's not the canon color Ashbringer. She transmogged it before she went to this event, apparently. Even though she's never seen holding the Ashbringer ever again, she picked it up for this event. Battle for Azeroth comes around, and apparently there's been some paladin drama, as Liadrin and her Blood Knights have splintered from the Knights of the Silver Hand. Not only that, but she's also wearing the Blood Knight tabard again. Even though we saw some artwork earlier where she's ripping it in half, she's now wearing the Blood Knight tabard. She's got some really cool new armor, we'll talk about that later. And she's carrying her own standard and flag in the Stromgarde Warfront event, while Turalyon and his knights are carrying the Silver Hand standard. It seems that her time spent on Argus didn't really mean much, as she taunts Turalyon, and Turalyon taunts her. Turalyon actually scoffs at the idea of a Horde Paladin. He only played Classic. He stopped playing back in Classic. He never played BC. And Liadrin is also present in the Heritage Armor questline, which of course we see everything that I just talked about from the Fall of Silvermoon with all those characters. If you go and do the Silvermoon Blood Elf Heritage Armor questline, a lot of the characters I mentioned at the beginning of this video are all present in ghost form, including Liadrin in her Priestess robes, wielding a big old chunky mace. It's interesting. Go do it. It's actually... There's a lot of lore there in just the background characters. It's really cool. Liadrin is later involved in the faction assaults, encouraging the Horde to hold nothing back. She just encourages the Horde. There's an interesting part here, and I will note, it's randomized, yes, but one of the quests that she gives you is to go kill a neutral Mistweaver in Tiragard Sound, a Pandaren from Pandaria, from one of the neutral villages, to go kill her and take her head, and to kill the field hospital full of Kultirist civilians. That's Liadrin's job in Battle for Azeroth, is to tell Horde players to go butcher a neutral Pandaren and kill a bunch of dying Kultirist civilians. Again, the quest giver for that is completely randomized. I did it the other day, and it was the screaming orc lady Usha Eyegouge telling me to go do it. So it's not Liadrin canonically. I just found it very hysterical that Liadrin is screaming at me to go murder a bunch of dying hospital patients and a Pandaren who's trying to heal them. Thanks Liadrin. And that's it. That's it for Lady Liadrin. Her storyline, her backstory, her early backstory from before World of Warcraft with the Fall of Silvermoon is so important. Blood of the Highborn is a short novella by Mickey Nielsen. I have not read it. I will be 100% honest, I have not read it yet. I'm sorry, Mickey. But go read it. Reading the synopsis and reading the list of all the stuff I missed from Blood of the Highborn, it is on my list, because, good God, this seems like some good, solid Blood Elf lore. It's part of a package deal of Warcraft books. I believe it can be found on Amazon, so go check it out. Written by Mickey Nielsen, and it features Liadrin's whole storyline. As for future storylines with Liadrin, I am very interested to see where this goes. I'm really curious to see if her doubts about Sylvanas being the same as who she was when she was Ranger General, I want to see if that comes up again. Because Lor'themar brings that up. Lor'themar brings it up in the Blood Elf Heritage questline when he says, she will always be remembered for the one who died defending Silvermoon. And I really wonder if that's going to come up in the future. Does anyone really expect Sylvanas to still lead the Horde at the end of this expansion? Likely not. So I'm wondering where Liadrin's thoughts are on all this. And I really would love a Liadrin or Lor'themar joined story, like a short story, to get some internal dialogue going on with the burning of Teldrassil and everything that's happened. I really want to know what's going on with Liadrin and the Blood Elves within the Horde, because Lor'themar makes note that he's siding against Sylvanas, and he hopes his people side with him. He notes that several times, that he hopes his people stand with him. And kind of begs the question, well, would other elves stand against him? Would they side with Sylvanas instead? They shouldn't, because she's not the same Sylvanas, and most Blood Elves are going to be loyal to Silvermoon and to the Regent Lord, but, you know, what's the internal dialogue going on with Liadrin? What does she think of the War Chief of the Horde, the former Ranger General of Silvermoon? With her involvement in the Warfront, I am really curious to see who is the canonical winner of that, and I'm really curious to see, did the Horde win, did the Horde lose? We need official answers from Blizzard, but only time will tell about that. And if the Horde did lose, who was the canonical leader of the Arathi Warfront? And overall, we don't really know what her storyline in Battle for Azeroth is going to turn to, where her and her loyalty to Sylvanas will go, where her and her fate in the Warfront will go. It's all up in the air right now. It's one of those things where we don't even have a general idea. She's not really active in Battle for Azeroth, so I'm excited to see if Liadrin has some active role to come for the rest of the expansion. Some quick notes about Liadrin here before we tie off. Her latest weapon upgrade matches her Hearthstone artwork. Up until recently, she wielded a blade that looked like Quel'Dalar, and while we don't really know if it was Quel'Dalar, just a look-alike blade, because elven blades could look alike, she's no longer wielding that. She wields a sword and a shield that looks like her Hearthstone artwork. She recently received the Golden Eye update that Blood Elves got in the first patch of Battle for Azeroth, and although that was when she got her Golden Eyes, it can be assumed that she got those Golden Eyes when the Sunwell was purified at the end of Burning Crusade. Maybe not instantly, maybe it was a gradual thing, but it's not just suddenly in the middle of Battle for Azeroth, bam, her eyes turn gold. It's just a character customization that Blizzard was late on, but wanted to give to the players. She changes tabards often. She starts with the Blood Knight tabard and then rips it off and puts on the Shattered Sun, and then puts the Blood Knight back on, but then puts on the Silver Hand, but now she's wearing the Blood Knight one. She can't really make up her transmog idea. And speaking of transmog, she has a brand new set in the Arathi Warfront. She's wearing the amazingly upgraded Tier 6 version of the Paladin armor, the Horde PvP version, while her guards behind her are wearing the most beautiful Blood Knight armor that is perfect as a Horde set that Horde never got in Legion. This is what the Horde got, this color. This is what the Horde got, that color, right next to me, right there. That one right there. Horde got that set instead of this one. Let's give the Horde the silver and orange one instead of the black and red one that matches the tabard and the Blood Knight's aesthetic since Burning Crusade. Who decided that? If you decided that and you're watching this, let's talk. We gotta talk. We gotta fix this. We gotta fix this, man. And what's interesting is, despite her flip-floppiness, Liadrin has developed a positive relationship with the Light and with the Draenei. It seems that she's actually decent friends with Velen. And so I'm curious if the conflict between the Alliance and Horde escalates to a point. What would happen if she faced Velen on the battlefield? I don't think anything would happen there because of her connections with the Prophet and everything that's happened. There is a lot there, and it's interesting. She also shares a parallel with Nobundo, the Draenei shaman, the broken shaman rather, as they are the first of their class race combo, both for their races and for their factions. And both main characters have been heavily influenced by written pieces by the amazing Mickey Nielsen. And those are some quick facts about Liadrin that I thought would be fun to include. And with that, guys, I am done talking. This has been a long episode. I know. Liadrin has a lot going on. I didn't know that when I said, hey, let's do Liadrin. She's our next video. And afterwards I realized, oh my god, there's a lot here. And so thank you to Laytis and Shandryn for the special deep dives and the writing of the script. And thank you as well to Ishura for coming in with some awesome facts from the Blood of the Highborn and some dropping the real lore knowledge on Liadrin. Laytis, Shandryn, Ishura, you guys are awesome. Thank you for helping me write this. And of course, special thank you to our patrons over at patreon.com/The Lost Codex. If you're interested in helping us, support us, seeing the channel grow, head on over to Patreon. Link is in the description below, and check out some of our rewards. And that's all I got. That's it, guys. What do you guys think of this longer episode? Let me know what you guys want to see from Liadrin in the future. What would you like to see her future storyline go into? Where do you want to see her character direction go? And let me know, who do you want me to cover next for the next episode of Lost Codex Legends? If you had to pick a not main character, like Sylvanas or Anduin or Arthas, a not main character for Lost Codex Legends, let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got. We'll see you guys next week for another episode of Lost Codex Legends. Until then.